Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu salamu rasulullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Here we are again with the Friday live interviews, and today I have Melissa Frost-Ford, one of my almost this close to being certified coaches and mentors from the Back to the Fitrah Academy. So excited. Last week she did her talk in our Facebook group about peaceful grief. It was a really fantastic topic and well done, mashallah. So welcome, Melissa. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair.
So we wanted to chat today a bit about your experience of this understanding that you're now going to be out there and teaching others and sharing in the conference as well, inshallah. And maybe you could share with us a little bit about some of the challenges that you used to experience that perhaps you don't experience anymore, or you just experience occasionally now instead of it being a perpetual issue.
For me, the biggest one that stands out is my overthinking. I've always been very analytical. I like to find out so many details. And so when I first heard about the inside out paradigm, that our feelings are coming from our thinking, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And intellectually, I got it. So I thought, I got this. Like, I'm going to be flying through this. And I figured it all out. And then as people were getting insights, I was like, well, I'm not getting the insights. So I was analyzing what steps they took to get an insight. And then I would try to copy their steps, and I wasn't getting insights. Then I was reading about insights and I wasn't getting insights. And the more I thought about it, I was building up this big bubble of a story that insights were this massive thing that I had to do something to get to that state, but I didn't. And I built it up and I built it up and I built it up and I built it up. And I was getting so frustrated with myself. And I knew it. I knew I was intellectualizing it, but I couldn't, it just wasn't stopping. I couldn't let go and just be in the process. And I think it led to some very interesting conversations, that's for sure.
Yeah, you were quite frustrated and sort of almost created a story, because this is the problem with overthinking, is that overthinkers are very creative people. They create wonderful stories in their own mind about what's really going on. And I think you led yourself to believe that it wasn't going to be possible for you, that there was something wrong with you, that you were different to everybody else, right?
Oh, 100%. Like, it was probably a good year into it. And I was like, I'm broken. There's something different in my thought. It's not thought for me. I had just made it into something huge and just hard and impossible. And the more you build up those walls, I mean, it's your truth because it's your thinking. So you're creating that reality around you. And I was basically setting myself up to be in that situation instead of just seeing, like, let go and let the process happen. And I started to even compartmentalize, like, these emotions are good and these are bad. So I need to focus on, and I was really overthinking it so much. And I created so many barriers for myself because I wanted to be the fastest one and I wanted to just intellectualize it. So I was like, I've got this, but I had no idea what I was talking about.
Yeah. And the more you had that thinking, the further away you actually got from it, wasn't it? It was just layer upon layer upon layer of stories building up around, well, that's it for you, this, perhaps it's because of this in the past, or perhaps it's because of this, that maybe your thinking is broken compared to other people's thinking. Yeah. so what happened, or how did it shift from that? And I know sometimes you still struggle with that, we all do, but what happened? Why is that not so much the forefront of your life now?
There's quite a few things, but the one that really stands out for me is when we were talking one day and you had said something about how, like, Allah is in charge. So if you actually believe this and you actually put your, like, faith in his qadar and he knows what he's doing, like, what's the issue? Like, he's got this. You just, like, rely on Allah. And I was like, well, I feel like I am. And I was analyzing that. And then I realized, wow, I really wasn't letting go and letting go. Like, even though Allah is in charge, I wasn't letting go of that. And I wasn't allowing that to like penetrate in me. Like, it's up to Allah. Like, the timing is up to Allah. It's not up to me. It's not up to anybody who's trying to help me with this. The timing is when Allah decides. And I started to make dua nightly. I was praying and making dua, making dua, making dua. And then it just kind of fell away. And it was just gone. And I was like, oh, okay. SubhanAllah.
And did that go kind of against the grain of what you expected? I mean, I know in the past that you've experienced other types of modalities in terms of counselling and things like that. I mean, we've all often been through a lot of those things as well. I did as well. And so we're kind of trained to believe we have to do something in order for it all to work. So was that quite a surprise for you when you actually discovered that it happened when you weren't looking, when you weren't doing something about it?
100%. I mean, the amount of therapists and things I've been to over the years, and you have to get through the program. And then once you're through the program, somehow you've magically gained this magical understanding. But then at the end of the program, I would be sitting there going, but wait a minute, no, I don't get it. I still didn't get it. And I had done all the steps and I did it really, really, really well. And I was trying to make it something that you could like be a perfectionist with, and you could, you know, just fix all the little details and then magically you'll get there. And it doesn't work that way. You have to just let go and leave it to Allah and ask Allah to help guide you, because He's the only one that can guide us. And it's just so different than anything I've ever experienced. And that's when you know it's the truth and it works, because it just is. It was like when I converted to Islam, I was like, oh, like your world can't go back to the way it was before. It just was. That's the truth and that's it.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So I come across a lot of overthinkers and perfectionists. Probably you could have claimed those labels in the past.
Yeah.
So I think it would be interesting to share with people what are the downfalls or the pitfalls of being an overthinker or someone who has to get everything perfect. Like how does that show up in life?
Well, it's something you can never achieve. So you're constantly going after something that's not possible, because we're in dunya, we're not in Jannah. Inshallah, we make it there, but we're in dunya. And so it's impossible for us to be perfect. We can't get to that stage. And overthinking, you're thinking about every possibility. And every possibility, it's not necessary to be worrying about every possibility, because only one thing is going to happen. And we don't know what that's going to be. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So overthinking and over worrying, you're exhausting all of your energy on something that's an illusion. It's not real. It doesn't exist. And you really physically drain yourself, not just emotionally, but it becomes a physical drain, and you don't have the ability to give to other people. Like maybe you want to be present with other people. You can't, because you're spending all your time in the what ifs instead of like seeing what's happening right now.
Mm. So it sounds exhausting just listening to you explain it.
It is.
Yeah. So what's different about life now then? Like how is life different for you now that you don't overthink or don't try to perfect everything?
I mean, I'm not going to like lie and say it doesn't happen. I still have some things where I get stuck at times, but in general, there's just so much more peace, and I can actually enjoy moments instead of worrying about what's going to happen later. I can actually just be present in a beautiful moment and be grateful to Allah for that beautiful moment, instead of thinking, well, if this happens in the next minute, and then if this, okay, and I would even micro plan what other people were doing and what their reaction would be if I said this and if I did that. And when that all falls away, you let people be who they are, and you are who you are, and you're just with people enjoying yourself and enjoying your time, and you have more time on your hands because you're not thinking constantly. You can actually get stuff done. So I mean, I think I was such a procrastinator. I know I was a procrastinator because I was so caught in the what ifs. I would never get things done. I would just get stuck in the, well, if I do this or I do that. And in my head, I had these great, amazing plans, but they never came to be because they were stuck in all my what ifs and my worrying about everybody's response. But none of that is real because nobody knows anybody else's reaction. So I was exhausting myself for an illusion.
Amazing, isn't it? So you've discovered then that your motivation to get stuff done is actually innate in you, and that the procrastination was actually a symptom of all the overthinking.
Oh, 100%. It's incredible, like how much I used to say this all the time, there's not enough hours in the day. But there are, because Allah decided that this is how many hours there are in a day. And we choose what we focus on, and we choose what we're going to do in the day. And if we're present in the moment and see what needs to be done, stuff gets done naturally. But if we're not, we're just thinking about it, and you end up with big piles of to-do lists that just are sitting there, and you're worrying about them, and it builds up into stories.
I can remember my era of to-do lists, and I was forever transcribing everything from this to-do list onto the next one, because I never got anything done off the to-do list because I was too busy writing to-do lists and overthinking everything. So I'm so glad those days are gone. Come to love it. When you said that, it just triggered my memory of how I used to be too. And it's interesting, that's a bit what it's like, isn't it? That we look back and we suddenly go, oh, hang on a minute, I don't do that anymore, or I don't get bothered by that anymore. And it's quite profound how things have just fallen away that used to be a challenge. And it's just in reflection that we suddenly realize they've gone. We just experience life differently, subhanAllah. So we've got quite a few people watching. So salam to all the sisters that have said salam, and thank you for being here. If you've got any questions for Melissa around overthinking, perfectionism, to-do lists, what else have we been talking about? Enough time in the day, any of those sorts of topics that are coming up, feel free to ask them and I'll pass them on to her. She can't see the chat, but I'll mention them to her. And make sure you share this with others and like it, because the more you like it and the more you share it, the more people Facebook will share it with. So if you think this is a beneficial topic, share the khair, inshallah. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi barakatuh. We've got Rahma, we've got Pia, we've got Marwa, Amina, Daniela, and if there's anyone else, you just haven't popped up on my screen, but welcome all of you. All right, so back to to-do list. So one of the questions I get a lot of, and it would be interesting to see what your take of it is, a lot of people say, well, if you don't have to-do lists and you don't, and because the other thing we do is we don't really get so focused on so much goal setting and stuff as well. It's more like having, well, for me, it's more like having a vision and working towards that vision of what I want things to look like, rather than specific, SMART goals and all that sort of thing that's taught out there. And so people go, yeah, but how do you keep progressing forward then if you're not doing to-do lists and you're not setting goals and you're not doing all those standard things that we're taught that we have to do in order to be productive? But you've already said you're more productive without all of that, that you were less productive with it. Can you share with those who are listening, I guess the answer to the question, how does that work?
It's actually, and as you were saying it, I was kind of, well, how does that work? And it's really, when the thinking falls away, clarity just comes naturally, because we naturally know what to do. We naturally know what we're inclined towards. We naturally have that. We know innately it's there, but we cloud it with overthinking. And so when the thoughts fall away and you're just left in the present moment, it's very clear to see the path ahead and the steps ahead. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens the doors for you that maybe sometimes we would be shutting and trying to avoid, because the thoughts have fallen away. We're like, let me try that avenue. Let's try some. And you end up in a different space than maybe you could have ever imagined, because you're just being, you're just present, and you're allowing yourself to go with the flow. and you become, it's amazing. You become so much more productive, and you're not even trying. It was funny you were saying that. Like I used to, because I like to draw, I used to have like the perfect one. And then I would not like how it turned out. So then I moved to like bullet journaling, and I made myself so exhausted with my lists that I would end up at the end of the day tired from just the list making. And I got nothing done from all my drawing. And I bought every kind of like tape there was out there and pens and markers to make it so fabulous. And I was like, that's going to make me more productive. And it ended up stressing me out because I was focusing on that instead of allowing myself to do. I was almost holding myself back with trying to do something again. Like I was always tending to go back to needing to do something to be productive, but you don't. It's just something that naturally it's in you. You know what you need to do when you wake up in the morning. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you so many options and so many doors that open in front of you to walk through. But we just need to be the ones to say, okay, and walk through it. Alhamdulillah.
See, the analogy that comes to my mind around this topic is, imagine driving, right? So if we're driving and it's foggy and it's nighttime, all you can see in front of you is like this tiny little thing, and you're really concentrating hard, and it's quite tiring because you're really kind of squinting to make sure you don't bang into someone in front of you, and to still try go fast enough that someone doesn't bang into you from behind, right? So it's like hard work. And that's what it's like with all the overthinking. The overthinking and everything is like the fog. It's the fog in the way of you seeing the path. But then what you were describing is, just imagine it's a beautiful, perfect, sunny day, and you're on this long journey, and you can see the road ahead, and you can see with the destination, the mountains or the sea or whatever it is you're heading towards, and you can just see where you're going. And it doesn't, you go a good speed. You're not worried about hitting anything because you can see in front of you clearly. You're not worried about anyone hitting you from behind because you know they can see you clearly, and you just drive and you enjoy it and you get there. And that's the analogy that comes to my mind.
I love that's amazing.
But that's really what it's like, isn't it? You know,
exactly what it is. It's a fog. It's a fog, and you're doing it to yourself through your overthinking. Subhanallah.
Yeah. And do you know what? I love the word fog because it stands for three words: fear, obligation, and guilt. If I use, and so a lot of the overthinking we have that's sort of holding us back is fear. So all the what ifs you were talking about, what if this happens? What if they react that way? What if they think this? What if that? What if that, right? The other one is the obligation. So the obligation is us going, oh, well, I want to do this, but I should do this because this is what everyone has taught me I should be doing. And so it's all the shoulds coming up in our head. And then there's the guilt, which is sort of also like the obligations. Is like, oh, you know, if I'm not doing it the way they want me to, then I feel guilty because, you know, I'm letting them down. And it's all just thought, and it's all stuff we've created. And as you called it an illusion before, much of that stuff is an assumption anyway. A lot of those thoughts that we're having are coming from our own creative thinking and the great creative stories that we've put in our head about what everyone else expects and what everybody else is thinking. And most of the time we haven't actually asked these people, what do you expect or what are you thinking? We're making that story up, and then that's the fog we're in. So when and I think someone here was saying at times it's hard to not overthink. The more you ignore, the stronger they become, like more that you ignore so we're not trying to ignore the thoughts because the thoughts just go away. That's the difference, I think, because ignoring the thoughts, it's like they're still there and I'm trying to ignore them. We're trying to do something. What we're saying is when we see them for what they are, they stop being a fog. They stop being there. When we see that it is assumptions we're making, we stop creating those stories. When we see that we actually don't, that it's not really true, that it's just the illusion we've created, we stop believing in it. And so that's why the fog lifts, and then there's the clear path ahead that you were describing. It's pretty cool, isn't it?
It's incredible. And I was trying to do that too, because that was one of my analysis, was that I could just kind of suppress the thought and that I could change the thought. And you can't. Thoughts just come, and it's okay. It's natural for thoughts to come. But when we try to suppress the thought, it's going to come out eventually. Like, it comes back some way. And it's just kind of letting go, and just being, and just letting go of all of that need to try to control the situation, because that's another way of trying to gain control of the situation, is trying to control our thinking, and we can't do that.
Yeah.
And you were saying about the outcome and other people, that was one thing that also helped me, is realizing that I can't control another person's thoughts and they can't control mine. And so I'm worrying about something that's not even in my hands. And it's not something I can ever do. So why am I worrying about things that really are not up to me? And it just kind of falls away. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, you explained that beautifully. Alhamdulillah. And that's, I think, one of the misconceptions, and it's a misconception that is perpetuated by a lot of the self-help industry. It's like, let's replace our negative thoughts with positive thoughts. Let's do this. But you said you like my analogies. You might like this one too. It's like saying, once the baby comes out, you look at it and go, no, I don't like that one. Put it back. Let's get a different one out. Because once you've had the thought, right? You can't put it back in and go, no, don't like the way that thought came out. Put it back. Let's bring it out a different way. It just doesn't work like that. It's actually about understanding, well, that thought is like a bubble machine. Like, it's just perpetually lots of bubbles coming out, and then they're all popping. And so it's realizing that that's just a thought. I don't need to take it seriously. It's just going to pop anyway, and the next thought's going to come past. So I don't need to put thought into that thought. The problem comes when we put thought into the thought. We start judging the thought. You were doing a lot of judging your thoughts. I remember that, weren't you? You're getting quite distressed. I'm having this sort of thinking, there's something wrong with me. I shouldn't even be thinking like that. It's like, no, you can't control that. We all have weird and wacky stuff that comes through our thoughts. It's just, we don't take it seriously. And if you don't take it seriously, it just pops like a balloon, like a bubble pops, and you're onto your next thought. And along with that comes your next experience of thought.
That's so true. But I was trying to replace it. I was trying to replace, and I think that's a lot of, like you said, the self-help industry out there, that's their goal, is to constantly try to get you to change what's happening to you naturally, but you can't. You just need to kind of go with the flow. And if the thought comes up, okay, it comes up. You have the choice to do what you will with it. It's a thought. And don't have to make it more than what it is. But I was analyzing every even word that popped into my brain. I was like, oh, I worded this way, and my thoughts gone that way. And it was exhausting. I was really tired.
Well, I'm not surprised, because they say we have about 70,000 thoughts a day. And so if you were trying to analyze 70,000 thoughts a day, it must have been pretty exhausting.
Exactly. And I think at some point I probably was. It was, yeah.
I can just imagine it's like, hang on a minute, pause. I haven't finished analyzing that thought, and another thought's come through. Look, just stop a minute. I haven't caught up yet. Because I remember how you were back then. There was quite a flustery kind of experience for you, wasn't it? Like, just very flustered with it
all the time. And it affected my parenting, because my children would come up to me and I was like, but I'm not done like analyzing what's going on in my brain yet. And I felt like they were interrupting that process all the time, instead of realizing that I was zoned out and not even present in the moment with them when they needed me for something. And then I'd come back and try to fix that. And then I'd analyze that. And I was just going into this huge bubble of guilt, the G in the fog.
Yeah.
And it was all overthinking and just not allowing myself to just feel whatever thought. It's just a thought. It's a thought. It's going to come. It's going to go. And we don't have to do the analyzing for it to understand. We don't have to go into the past to poke at the past. We don't have to do that. Alhamdulillah. It is what it is.
And that's what's so beautiful and inspiring about it all, is it's just, the whole thing is about understanding the concept of thought, not trying to pull it apart into positive or negative, beneficial or not beneficial, or good or bad, or whatever title we want to give it, but just seeing it as it's just thought. We're not accountable for thought, alhamdulillah, because we'd all be completely stuffed if we were, because we all have really crazy thoughts sometimes. I mean, okay, I'll say one out loud just for the sake of argument, because it's the sort of thought people might judge themselves on, is that there were times when I was going through the family court that the thought would pop into my head that this would be so much simpler if he would just go away. Now, that didn't mean that I then went on to manifest other thoughts of, and how am I going to execute that? I didn't do that. And I didn't judge myself for having that thought. I just saw that as a human thought, that when it's really hard and it looks like that person is the creation of how hard it is, then thoughts like that will pop into our head. And if we don't act upon that thought, then it's fine. It just passes. And it did just pass. Like that person's still alive now and doesn't cause me any grief whatsoever, because actually no one can cause me grief, only my thoughts can anyway. But he doesn't even try to cause me grief anymore. It's all just faded away. He didn't have to go away for me to be okay. And that's where we, I think, get tangled in judging our thoughts, because we think, oh, I'm a bad person. I'm wishing one of Allah's creations would just die or something so I can be okay, or how bad am I? And it's that kind of judgment and criticism of our thoughts that creates a difficult experience around them, rather than just going, oh, it's just a passing thought. And, you know, of course I'm having those thoughts because right now it's really tough, but it's okay. It was just a thought, and I'm not going to come to account for that unless I act upon that thought.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful choice we have. Like, thoughts are going to come and they're going to go, and we choose what actions we take based on that. So when we see things clearly, and see it as just a thought, it's so much easier for it to pass, rather than making it into a story, and then we judge ourselves based on our thinking, which nobody heard anyways. So literally we're beating ourselves up on something that nobody knows except for us and Allah knows our intention, and Allah knows our intention is not to go through with it. But yet we're beating ourselves up on it, and we think people around us maybe know because, you know, overanalyze it.
Because they can read minds, right?
And it just kind of, it's so amazing how you can blow it up into just something so much bigger than. I just had a thought because I was really upset, and that situation really was hard. And a thought came and it passed, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And the way I see it now is, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this life as a test, right? And I see that him giving us free thinking, which is what he's given us, as our test, because our thoughts lead us to our experience and the way we feel. And then that leads us to how we behave and react. And that is the bit that we have control over, is how do we react? How do we behave? And that's the test, isn't it? Do we choose to please Allah, or do we choose to do something that's going to make us feel better without considering whether that's the right path for the sake of Allah? And so it's really, this understanding really brings you right back down to the simplicity of Islam and the simplicity of what this life's test is. It just boils down to, in this very moment, am I going to follow what's pleasing to Allah, or I'm going to follow what's pleasing to myself? And pleasing to Allah and pleasing to ourselves can be in alignment sometimes, but in those uncomfortable moments, in those difficult moments, we're often tempted to do what's going to make the pain go away, or the anger to go away, or the sorrow to go away, instead of what's pleasing to Allah.
Yeah. And it really does give you that clarity, because you can also see that, like, other people will be going through the same thing, and understanding that they're having their reality as well. It also makes you more empathetic to the fact that all of us are going through. Every human on earth is going through this. Everyone has their choices. Everybody's going to have good thoughts and bad thoughts flowing through their head, and everybody has a choice to make. And it just gives you more empathy. And even people, when they've hurt you, you sometimes have, like, just the ability to just go, we're all human, and Allah has given us a choice, and that was a really bad choice. And it happens. It happens.
And everybody makes bad choices sometimes. So it does give us the ability to be more compassionate towards those who try to harm us, because we realize that in that moment, they're actually in a place of insanity, according to our version of insanity. They're thinking that whatever it is they're doing to us is going to help them feel better. And it doesn't work that way. So they're psychologically, they're quite innocent because they're in an illusion. They're not innocent of their actions, of course. No, but we're not justifying people hurting us. But I'm talking about in terms of how we can look at it. And so our experience of their hurtful behavior might be to not feel hurt at all, but to look at them with some, compassion, and actually go, wow, you must be in a really bad place right now to do that or say that, and be part of the solution rather than fire up more of the problem.
Yeah. Or to see if a limit needs to be set. Like, there's so many options when you're seeing it clearly. And when you're not seeing it clearly, you go into just like a panic, like almost a fight or flight mode, instead of being present in the moment and going, wow, okay, like they're having a perspective and so am I. And what they did is not okay, but I choose how I'm going to respond to this now. And you're able to do what's, like you said before, what's pleasing to Allah, because sometimes what's pleasing to Allah is not always what our brain is telling us to do at the moment. And we have to use our wisdom to say, okay, well, is this just my anger? Am I just coming at this from a place of being hurt? Or like, is this something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would want me to do?
And it feels very real. So it doesn't happen to me so much anymore, but I do sometimes get lost on that other side of the fence. And I did have an experience at Eid where I experienced an injustice, right? And in that moment, the injustice was that I had a plan for Eid, and obviously Allah had a different plan for me. And it was probably to have this insight and understand myself a little better, alhamdulillah. But in the moment, what happened was I didn't end up on Eid day having all my kids together even for 1 minute. And the reason that didn't happen was because certain other people in the family sort of sabotaged my plan by not communicating with me and just coming up with another plan that they should all go and spend time with their father. And so in that moment, all what came flooding back into my mind was, he doesn't deserve that because he has done nothing for those kids all their life. He hasn't paid for anything. He hasn't been there for them. All he's done is be abusive and be a drug addict and all this sort of thing. And that's what was coming through my head. And I got myself into such a state that I really felt like, and I knew it wasn't true, so I held myself back, but I really wanted to write some very terse kind of messages saying how unfair it was and how dare you, and all, and because the ones who were initiating it were my older stepsons who are like 32 and 30 now, so they're adults. And it's like, what was coming to my mind was, you don't even send me an Eid Mubarak. All those years I supported you, because I supported my stepsons financially even after I wasn't married to their dad, because they were lacking, right? And so all this indignation and injustice came to the surface, and it really felt like, if I don't write this message and tell them how unfair it is, I'm not going to be okay. So I wrote the message for the sake of the process of writing the message, but I didn't hit send. And then the following day, when all the dust settled, I wrote, I felt a need to set a limit, because it wasn't okay what actually unfolded that day, because in the process of it, my daughter got emotionally blackmailed and got really upset, and that wasn't okay. And so I had to set some limits, but I was able to set a limit from a calm place that said, look, in future, it would be really nice if you could just check in and check what my plans are before you take my kids to be over there. And so I thought I would share that, because I want people to understand that in that moment, we can't really see the truth of what's pleasing to Allah. It really looks like I have to say or do this to feel okay. And when we can see that more in ourselves, then we can be more compassionate to others when they haven't been able to stop themselves because it looks so real to them that they have to say or do something in order to feel better. It doesn't work, and it can often lead people, you know, down worse paths, which is why this is such important stuff for us to share, isn't it? Because this is the answer to us being a united ummah, to us being ending oppression of one another, you know, to all meet in Jannah, inshallah.
Allah. And
Yeah.
to stop oppressing ourselves. Like, we oppress ourselves, and we, you know, do it. We are not giving ourselves the chance to actually be the full, you know, Muslimas that we want to be out there. Like, because we're stuck in all these stories and all of these shoulds and would haves and all of those things that really keep us from being who we should be. Like, not should be, but you know what I mean? Where we can
who we naturally are, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us on the fitrah, so we're naturally inclined to good, right? That's how everyone was born. But it's all this stuff that goes on that gets in the way of us seeing that and sticking to that. And so that's why we call it back to the fitrah, because it's about coming back to that fitrah state of innately moving towards good and away from evil.
Yeah. And I think that the thing that I didn't realize was that it's a continual process. So it's not something that once you get it, that means 100% of the time you're going to see it, and you're not going to have moments. Like, as you get it, Allah tests you in other ways, because, you know, we're constantly in need of bettering ourselves. We're humans. We are imperfect. And so we're never going to get to a stage in this life where we've reached some sort of state of perfection. So these tests will come, and each test is made for us specifically. So it's going to be challenging. But when you have this understanding, you might initially not really see it, but then you step back and you're like, okay, all right, I got this. Or I need help. Like, it just opens up those doors for you. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. So I've got some comments here I'll just share with you. So Lamanda is saying, so it's more about observing the thoughts. So observing the thoughts can be part of the process that we go through, but we get to the stage where we just don't pay attention to the thoughts that are just passing, that really don't deserve any attention. It just becomes more about our focus being on the thoughts that come through that are important. Rahma says, amazing live, have to pray Fajr, be right back. Okay, hope you've come back to us, Rahma. Amira says, Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum salam. She says, I need more wisdom. So actually, Sister Amira, you already have all the wisdom that you need. But like what we've been talking about, it's the thoughts that are the barrier to accessing that wisdom. Each and every one of us has wisdom, and I'm no more wise than anyone else, nor is Melissa more wise than anyone else. We just have less thinking in the way, and we're able to access that wisdom. So Amira, you've got plenty of wisdom. It's just about the access to the wisdom being blocked by the sort of topic we're talking about, which is overthinking. Amira is saying, you're a beautiful, honest person. I'm not sure if that's to either one of us. It could be to both of us, to be honest, because we're being here quite honest about things. Jazakallah khair for that. She says, I've never thought of that issue like that. Jazakallah khair wa yaki. So Shada's just joined us. Assalamu alaikum. So yeah, subhanallah, it's great, this engagement we're having with the live, and I think it is a very important topic, and we've sort of gone from overthinking and perfectionism into goals and checklists and to-do lists and then right through to choosing to please Allah and what that's all about. So we've gone on quite a journey in this conversation, subhanallah. So Melissa, perhaps before we wrap up, you can share with those who are listening the topic that you're going to talk about in our conference that's coming up. And while you're doing that, I'm going to type the conference link in the chat so people can register for the conference. So at the end of July, we're doing a live conference so that all the sessions will be live, and you'll be able to join us, all of the Back to the Fitrah mentors and coaches, in Zoom, so you can ask questions live and everything. So Melissa, tell them about your topic, why you put the link here for them.
Well, my topic is going to be on panic attacks and anxiety. It's something that I had been dealing with since I was very, very young. And it's probably where I had the most big insights. It's been very life-changing for me. I've gone from being housebound to being out in the world again, alhamdulillah, medication-free, and alhamdulillah, it just, the biggest shifts for my life with this understanding were through that process. So that's what I'll be sharing. I don't want to give
yeah, don't give away the whole story. We want to leave them in suspense so they come and join us. But basically, she's going to show you that there can be life beyond panic attacks.
Thank you. I couldn't.
Yeah. And I think it's a very important topic. I think there's been a lot of sisters showing up with panic and anxiety, especially, you know, this lockdown and COVID-19, everything has brought a lot of that stuff to the surface. And so it's a really important topic. And I think that, inshallah, lots of people will be benefiting from what you share in that talk, inshallah, at the conference. So it's back to the fitrahconference.com. The link is in the comments there to join, inshallah. Well, any last bit of advice you would like to share with the overthinkers that have joined us today?
I think just to let go, and, you know, don't forget to raise your hands and ask Allah for help. Ask Allah to give you guidance. Ask Allah for the wisdom. Ask Allah to help you see things clearly. And then let go, because it's a process that happens when you just let it happen. It's not something you can perfect. It's not something you can take steps to do. It's just something that is. And it's the truth of how our thinking works. It's the truth of who we are. And letting go and feeling it and experiencing it is the only way it happens. These insights are beautiful. And I just pray that everybody just turns to Allah and asks Him to give you the beautiful insights and wisdom, inshallah. And for me too, because it's a constant process. And inshallah, Allah expands my wisdom and knowledge as well. Alhamdulillah, inshallah, ya Rab.
Ameen, ya Rab. Yeah, so beautiful dua. So Jazakallah khair, everyone, for joining us. We've got some Shada saying panic attacks is something she always struggles with. And Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. She's saying, thank you, I really needed this. So alhamdulillah, it sounds to me that this topic has been exactly what was needed today. And that's what I love so much about being present in the moment, is we just allow Allah to guide us. So just to show how that works for all the overthinkers. So Melissa's still a bit of an overthinker at times. And so she was having a lot of thoughts about what on earth are we going to talk about in this session, right?
Yep.
And I do these interviews every Friday. It was Friday for me here in Australia. And I never know what we're going to talk about. And I don't mind, because I love the way it evolves. And this has just evolved beautifully, just like any of the other interviews that I've done with the other sisters, you know, alhamdulillah. And it's because I know that Allah is going to guide us to where we need to go in this conversation for whoever joins us. And you can't pre-plan that. You know, it's about being here present in the moment. And so, yeah, until we had a little bit of a chat, maybe 1 minute before we got on live, and thought about what's the key thing that is different from Melissa, and it was the whole overthinking thing. But that was as much as we planned of this conversation. I didn't plan the questions or anything. We just allowed it to evolve. And as you can see from the comments that people are saying, is that's what they needed to hear. And it works like that. That is how it works. That the more we put our trust in Allah, the more Allah is guiding us from one moment to the next, what we need to be doing, how we need to be showing up. And this is just one of those perfect examples of it. And it wasn't so hard, was it, Melissa? It just
flowed
naturally. Yeah.
Like everything. And I spend a lot of time overthinking, but alhamdulillah, it falls away. It falls away.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. All right, everyone, Jazakallah khair for joining us. If you're here, please share the love. If you thought this was beneficial, please hit the love signs as many times as you possibly can and share the love, because Facebook will then share this with others and others will benefit, and then you can get some reward too for having shared the khair with them. Share the video, because this is actually on our Facebook page. It can be shared, so share it with others. It will be uploaded later to my YouTube channel, so if you need a YouTube link, you can go there and collect that. It should be there fairly soon. My VA is pretty good. She jumps in straight away and does it, subhanAllah. And just share the love, because this is important. As we were saying, this life is a test. If we all want to meet in Jannah, we need to be making choices that are pleasing to Allah, and this is really key to understanding that. And as I said, make sure that you join our conference, back to the fitrahconference.com, and benefit from Melissa's talk about life beyond panic attacks. And we're all going to be talking about very different topics that all very relevant to our ummah, alhamdulillah. So at least we're all normal, Amira says. Exactly. We're all normal. We're all incredibly normal. And never see us here and go, oh, wow, we're something better. We're not. We're alhamdulillah, we've been blessed with this clarity and understanding, which is why we're so passionate about sharing it with others. But we're not anymore. We're not any better than anyone else. You know, we're very average. You should see my sink of dishes at home. I decided that's it. I'll see whether the dishes angels will come while I'm out. They probably won't.
No.
The dishes monsters will come and add more dishes in, I'm sure.
They always do.
That's why it's wonderful to have an office to go to now, because I can just shut that door and come here and focus. Alhamdulillah. We are all very normal. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Good. Oh, look, we're getting lots of love. Everybody's going wonderfully crazy with the love. Alhamdulillah. I'm so glad. All right, everyone, we better go. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. See you next week. I'm not quite sure who I'll be chatting with, but it will be someone, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.